Hello and welcome to SHOWstudio and welcome to Couture. So this is the first panel about Couture season, which is underway since yesterday in Paris. And today we're going to discuss the great Iris van Herpen. I have an amazing panel discussing this with me here today, and I would like you to introduce yourself, starting from you, Ariane.
My name is Ariane Koek, and I invited Iris to come to CERN in 2014, and she did a collection based on that. I'm a producer who works across disciplines, science, art and technology.
My name's Niamh White. I'm a curator, and I led a major project with Iris here at SHOWstudio called Splash.
I'm Teunissen. I'm Dean of School of Design and Technology at London College of Fashion, but before I worked for more than 12 years at Artes Institute of the Arts in Arnhem, and I knew Iris from that college.
I'm Hilary Alexander. I'm a freelance writer and editor-at-large of Hello Fashion Monthly.
I'm Deborah Milner, and I'm a couture designer.
Well, as you can see, this is no pressure, but I have an incredible panel of people who mostly have worked and known Iris. So I'm Mimma Viglezio, and I'm a guest chair, I guess, for this panel. So Iris van Herpen, what I think is very, very interesting about her is that I think she's the real couturier, because she brings innovation to a level that it's never seen before, and I wonder if it will be seen ever after. Iris is looking for a way to challenge the way of doing fashion. And she loves saying that she is not only an innovator, but also she is someone who brings back the real craft. So she managed to put together the two things in a spectacular way. She challenges the way matter and materials work to make them work the way she wants. So working with soft fabric isn't enough for her. So she works in an interdisciplinary way with science especially to obtain what she needs to obtain from the material, the fabric she works with. So I could go on and on and on, but I think it's not interesting to know what I think. So I would like to start with you, Ariane, because you were talking about science and working and introducing Iris to CERN. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so Iris came in 2014 to CERN, and it was like one of those real marriages where you see them confronting the huge technology of CERN, these detectors which are the size of cathedrals and built at the highest spec. But every single piece of these incredible accelerators and detectors are actually put together by hand. And it was a bit like she met her...
Which is what she does.
Yeah, which is exactly what she did. And that's what she said, actually. She actually said, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful to see something so futuristic and know it's all so handcrafted and done together by hand. And I just thought, well, that's you. That's actually you. That's what you do.
That's why you're invited, actually.
Yeah. And also I wanted the challenge of, you don't think of physicists as being the most top, amazing kind of people into fashion. And I thought, wouldn't it be incredible if somebody got inspired by the incredible work which CERN does, which is all about matter, materiality, which, as you said, that's what Iris is, and really challenged the kind of structures of how we exist even further. And she got inspired by it and then created Magnetic Motions, her spring-summer collection in 2015, by the experience of being at CERN and learning about attraction and repulsion and magnetic fields. And from then, she and Philip Beasley have come back and visited CERN. So yeah, it was a beautiful affinity.
It's quite amazing to see how she can learn. I mean, she's fascinated, obviously, about nature and space and biology and whatever goes with it, but for someone who hasn't studied that in particular, it's fascinating how she succeeds in making it in a credible way. And I think that's what's relevant today. I think that couture should be the stage for experience, for new experiences, and you know, we see couture today and we wonder what's really the difference between that and ready to wear. I mean, and then Iris happens and you're like, now I get it. So I see you're nodding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
can you tell us what you've done with her also?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was curator of exhibitions here at SHOWstudio, and we invited Iris to do a residency as well.
Yes.
And really what was wonderful about working here at SHOWstudio as like an exhibition platform is that we worked across web and a physical space. So part of the residency was to kind of reveal Iris's creative practice to a broad audience using technology. So we invited her to do a live studio. So that means a designer comes here with a concept and then creates something from start to finish, and then we exhibit it. So you kind of have the full experience. So when
And that was filmed, the full experience was
Exactly.
filmed.
So when we invited Iris, she said that she wanted to create a dress that looked like a splash of water wrapping around the body.
Water
I mean,
is one of her obsessions.
Yes, and she had already done the crystallization dress previously, but this was a really special opportunity, you know, to actually get some insight into how it comes into being. And so we actually went through the entire process. So we had Daphne Guinness, who stood on a plinth completely naked, and we threw buckets of water at her, and Nick captured the whole thing on high-speed cameras, beautiful 4,000 frames per second footage. We went through the frames, and Iris selected one that would serve as the pattern for the dress, you know. And then we had 7 days of Iris in the studio. And actually what's really interesting is that her way of fabricating really didn't engage technology at all, other than the fact that the plastic.
She likes to say that a lot
Yes.
in her interviews. You
You
know,
know.
I'm very traditional in the
Yeah.
way I actually make it.
And we showed her as an artisan. You know, she had very limited materials, just a kind of plastic that you can heat so it doesn't bubble and blacken, a heated kind of blower, and a pair of pliers. You know, we had this really wonderful different pace of film where at one moment would be quite a lot of activity working through the different elements of the dress, and moments of like, you know, contemplation and silence of just looking, you know, and her talking about how she didn't want any element of the dress to repeat itself, you know, in the same way that she's looking at this frame where this natural element behaves in a particular way.
It's magic.
It's magical. So then we got Daphne back, and Nick shot her in a fashion shoot. So again, the dress has this new life in still imagery, where at one moment it looks static and, you know, sculptural, and at another it looks ephemeral and like it's going to disappear. And then finally we had it in the gallery, so you could come and actually view the dress. So it's quite nice.
And I think Daphne, Nick and Iris together, it's already a match made in heaven. And one other thing that you said, it's very interesting because she says it a lot in her interviews. She's obsessed by the movement of the garment on the body, but the garment being the fabric that makes it. And that's where she uses technology, and she's very innovative, but then she crafts in a traditional way. What can you tell us about this?
I think that the most remarkable thing is that from Iris that she really looks for new inspiration, being inspired. It's, at one hand, quite straightforward because it's nature, it's water, but sometimes it can also be magnetism, and she has a real interest for it. And I think she sees the beauty of it and the imagination from it. And that makes her standing very much apart from the existing fashion industry, because it's a whole new area of imagination. And I think we need it, because I think a lot of things we are stuck in heritage and tradition, we recognize everything. And she started with a complete new imaginary. And it's not like a classic future thinking thing, but it tries to be also poetic, or I don't know exactly what it is. And I think the quality is that it's really new. Everyone feels that it has an energy, it's different. And then I think she tries to build on the technology that's beyond the inspiration, the water or whatever. And then I think she has the quality then to build, to construct on what the technology or what the building blocks is offering her as structure. So it can be 3D printing or whatever. Sometimes it's more like related to a bone structure. then it's more fluid. So it gives us a very distinct and different feeling of and quality of what a fabric can be, what a dress can be. And I think that all together gives us a very beautiful, poetic picture, insight in what the future can be.
That's extraordinarily well said. Thank you. Okay. And Hilary, since you're a fashion critic and fashion writer, I would like to have your take on what Iris is, but also I'm challenging you in telling me who wears Iris van Herpen, and does it matter at all in what she is, you know?
Well, firstly, to me, Iris van Herpen, I tend to think of her as the kind of Stephen Hawking's of fashion, because they both work or start with the natural world, that is nature, the world around us. And whereas Stephen Hawking's is theory and philosophy and trying to imagine, you know, what might happen if this happens to this or that collides with that or whatever, Iris actually makes it into a reality, you know, a visible, tangible thing, in the way that she applies science and technology and astronomy and
architecture,
kind of
art,
physics, and to her concept of nature and movement. And it's quite, somebody else said magical. Magical is the word, and yet
it's real.
It's real, and it involves thousands and thousands of hours of intricate handcrafting, and kind of sort of practices and methods. You know, I read about something called stereolithography and things that sort of macro photography and things that we would never normally associate with fashion. Apart from Daphne Guinness, I think Tilda Swinton has worn some of her pieces, and so has Björk, the singer. And I can't think, oh, and I'll tell you who else wore something, was that New Zealand chap who's called the God of Lightning, Carlos van Camp. And he experiments with electromagnetics and electricity and sending volts through things. And he actually wore one of Iris's pieces for a fashion show.
But what about in the real world? So I'll come to you, Deborah, in a second, but what about in the real world?
Well, if I could afford it, I would wear it.
Yeah, me too, but...
but Tilda Swinton's real.
No, I know. No, what I'm trying to say, yeah, in the people we don't know, I'm wondering, because I think relevance of fashion, it's not only innovation, but also the fact that it actually is fashion and is worn. And I don't think, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Iris really cares about, I mean, I think she cares about making enough money to continue experimenting, but then if it doesn't exist in the streets.
But we think for everyone, I think it feels like very relevant, because I think we can expect it to be the near future. So I think she offers something like a way that we expect, oh, maybe it takes 10, 20 years.
But it will be the reality.
It will be a practice.
That's very interesting.
And it could be worn by aliens.
But equally, it's going to
It could be cute, an alien that shows up in Iris van Herpen gown. But talking about craft, I think that's what I'm interested to hear about Deborah, who's a designer, and, you know, intricate and complicated craft with technology. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think that it's really important for couture that there is somebody like Iris who's actually pushing the boundaries into really modern materials and technologies, because otherwise couture will remain sort of rooted in the past. And if you think about Balenciaga, when he started up and invented gazar and therefore was able to create new shapes. So I think that's what she's doing. And maybe at the moment not everything's wearable, and as you say, maybe she doesn't care, which I can relate to, because in the past I've made things which were not very wearable and no one could wear. But I think that's the only way that you get to push the boundaries. And so through the experiments and the innovations that she's creating, I'm sure that there will
really
be
matters,
pieces that will be wearable, where it'll evolve into something that we can't even yet imagine. So,
Well, she's done a collection inspired by sound waves and magnetic waves. Sort of based on the theory, I think, that at some point the outfit will actually be like some sort of digital machine. So we won't need phones or laptops or tablets or anything, because the material that our sort of shell is constructed from will be sending out signals or making phone calls or acting like, an iPhone.
That's very interesting what you're saying, but is she really interested in that, or it's more an aesthetic way to reinterpret the body within the garment? Because I'm not sure, but again, I might be wrong, I'm not sure that by reading what she says, that she's really interested in adding technology like, the famous fabric that knows if you're cold or warm, or the phone which is inside of you. I think she's more interested in a ergonomic way to make the body look, or the fabric look on the body.
I think that's right, and I think that's her beauty. She's not pushed by the technology. She actually pushes the technology through her imagination. And her imagination is engaged with the world and its materiality, whether it's nature, the body, how they interact, our emotions. And she's often said what drives her is the impossible. That's what absolutely drives her. So if you look at, for example, there was that incredible ice dress. The ice dress, basically everybody said no. They said 99% absolutely impossible to create. And she pushed and pushed.
And did it.
And with the 40th material they used, they made it. And so she's pushing technology through her imagination. And that's what makes her truly unique. And also it's what touches our hearts and our souls. It's not cold fashion. Yeah. This is warm, visionary fashion, which takes you to another realm and touches your senses, your intellect, everything really.
Yeah, she also says that she's always credited to be the first one to have 3D printed a dress, but she says that's probably 20% of what I do. I mean, I would like people to stop saying that, because it is important, but it doesn't matter. That's much more than that. And we all using words like magic and poetic, and that's what really interests me in what she does.
And it's interesting that she kind of seeks out technology, the most relevant technology, as a tool. She's not using technology for technology's sake to do, anything other than what she's trying to understand or what her imagination has come up with. And I think that's very interesting as well. It's about finding these materials. And I think it is really important to her to see her work on people. She positions herself very much as a fashion designer. And I think while some works are difficult to wear, many of them, many of her kind of collaborations with technologists have made them wearable, made...
So she looks
for
a way to make it wearable.
And the movement of them and all of those things have made them possible to be garments, not
she also
artworks
says
and not
they're not
sculptures.
sculptures, they're garments.
And also she does do ready-to-wear as well. So that's, that's a step towards, having that wearability.
I think there's an incredible sense of romance about her pieces as well, because you look at many of the basic shapes, they're quite balletic, and I know she studied ballet when she was younger and as a child, and there's sometimes almost the sort of sugar plum fairy or the tutu shape, which goes in and then sort of rounds out. And you think of sometimes, because they're all sort of shiny and light, sort of Titania or a fairy princess or an angel on the top of a Christmas tree. There's that sort of ethereal lightness of being.
Well, that's very well said, but also what I think it's quite fascinating that within all this research and challenges, you recognize her signature. So there is a silhouette, there is something that you recognize, and so it also goes into the territory of I like it or not. I'm interested in it, but it's not for me. So it's very brave. It's very complex, and I think that's what fashion should be. Everybody's nodding. Everybody's taken by the images. Yes. I am completely obsessed by one thing, one of her dresses, which is this dress made with thousands of glass balls. I don't know if we can have the image here. She put together, she siliconed thousands of glass balls to not have to use glue and to make them into a dress that became, there it is. No, that's the crystal, that's those Swarovski crystals. There's another, that's the one.
That's very balletic.
That's very tutu.
Yes.
But if you look at the detail, this is genius. I mean, what mind can wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and it works, and it stays on the girl, and it's wearable, and it's just spectacular.
And every single piece has been done by
Hand.
Yeah.
That's the craft.
Yeah.
I also think that it's not just the tutu or the ballet kind of, like her silhouettes for me are quite empowering, an empowering kind of femininity. And I really enjoy that about her work as well.
What do you think, Deborah, about this?
Oh, I was just wondering how it was made, actually.
I think I read somewhere that there is silicone involved, so you don't need stitches. There's nothing about the traditional craft in there, but then it's 10 times more complicated, actually, right?
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
This is my obsession. This dress is just...
And I think anyway, it's going back to what we were saying about, you know, bringing the craft into the future and using different techniques, but you're still putting the man-hours in and the time to produce something that's really extraordinary.
And it's still
you
using
couldn't just,
the human hand.
Yes, it couldn't just go through a factory. You wouldn't be able to have it.
No factory could
Exactly.
say, oh yeah, easy, we'll make 20 of them.
How many would you like?
How many in what sizes? But that's exactly, but you know, that's to come back to, you're less interested in this, but I have this feeling like, does it matter that you can't go to a factory and say, I need 10 in size small or whatever? I mean, which is what a business does at the end of the day. So,
Yes, I think it does matter in a way, because it's producing something that's, I think, maybe I'm saying the same thing.
no.
I think it's good that you can't go to a factory and
It's good that you can or that you
can't.
Okay.
I think it's
So,
good to have
can you
some
elaborate?
things that are extraordinary and unique, and you have to work on to
And
create.
it's a one of a kind.
Yeah.
But also, is Iris a fashion designer? No, she's an artist who works with the body. Basically, she's an artist who works with the form, the movement of the body and the way it interacts with nature.
But she's a
She's
fashion
a scientist as well. I think she's really breaks all the rules in a way.
Yeah, but
I think she's trans.
But in the end, she's a fashion designer.
Good
because,
designers do
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
because she knows what's relevant within the fashion industry.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Pushes
also an expertise that you have to add as a layer on it. And it is an artistic approach. But I think a lot of other fashion designers also have an artistic approach. But I think you also have to say she is a fashion designer.
And she likes to say, I had an interview of hers where she was saying, I like to push the boundaries, but I am not a sculptor, I'm not a scientist, I'm a fashion designer who wants fashion to bring the discourse forward. So, and that's why, I mean, when we talk about Iris, honestly, who cares about how much money she makes? But actually, it's because of what she says that I'm stressing this concept. Like, you know, and as we were saying, I don't really think she wants to enrich herself. She probably wants to have enough to continue doing it. But, you know, when we say she does ready to wear, then I've been to some presentation of her ready to wear. It's not very far from this. It's not that there's normal fabrics and, you know, so.
But surely, like, the ecology of fashion requires the full spectrum. You know, it requires a commercial side of things where people can run successful businesses and people can wear good clothing. But we also require innovation, imagination, and all of those things that bring fashion forward, even if they do not fit for one instance within commerciality, you know, the man hours, the cost.
I couldn't agree more, personally.
You know, that we require that kind of creativity in order to progress, you know. It's absolutely imperative, I think. And that's why also we need our governments and our public funding to pitch in here, you know, to recognise that value and to be able to support that talent where it arises. You know, funding can come from different guises, but we do, you know, we've all got a duty to recognise when the value of something is not necessarily monetary. You know?
Oh, I agree. Yes, I agree. But then we still want her to be able to continue.
Yes,
That's why
absolutely.
someone
yeah.
has to take
So
care
the money
of it.
has to come from somewhere
Somewhere
else.
else, yeah.
I was trying to think sort of back into the past of a designer who perhaps had the same kind of approach to materials as they existed at the time then. And I was thinking perhaps of Paco Rabanne, you know, with his use of plastic and steel and metal. And he managed to make pieces that astounded everyone because nobody had made sort of dresses made from chain links or plastic discs before.
Yeah.
And yet they were worn, but then they never really, did they lead to anything else, I wonder?
Well, probably they did, meaning did they inspire
Yes.
something else?
Maybe
Well,
they inspired people like Iris.
Well, I think Paco Rabanne was, I mean, I don't know probably enough about what he did to talk about that, but I know that if we're still talking about Paco Rabanne in fashion, it's because, like Balenciaga, I mean, they inspired something new. They pushed it forward,
Yeah.
which is
And
the
nobody
job of
thought-
fashion. And today, it's not happening that much. It's a little bit boring often.
I mean, with Paco Rabanne, I suppose nobody had made a metal dress since, you know, the Middle Ages when men wore chainmail.
Yeah, exactly. Way before technology.
He was working with much less technology than is available
Yes.
today. I mean, he was presumably with cutting tools and drills and things like that, but no computerized.
Nothing computerized or 3D.
3D, they didn't know what it meant.
And then Hussein Chalayan probably would be the next stage. But it seems to me these designers like Iris and Hussein and perhaps Paco come along sort of once in a blue moon, you know, like a comet.
It's true. Luckily, they do come along. Shall we see what she's done? And we must say that this is the 10th anniversary of Iris, as we say actually, Iris van Herpen work. And so we've got some notes, and I believe that in the first paragraph of her press release, there is a sort of a summary of what she's been doing, her obsession for the past 10 years. And it says, for her latest haute couture collection presented in Paris on July the 3rd, titled Airy Form, Iris van Herpen examines the nature and anatomy of air and the idea of airborne materiality and lightness, creating negative and positive space with shadow and light, which I think, in a way, it sums up her entire career. So let's see. It's 18 looks. Is this the show? Okay. It's 18 looks, and she provided some notes on the various technology used. But I let you comment on the looks, on what you see. It's very hard to
It's so nice to be able to
decide
see
from this, from here, exactly what we're talking about. But
I mean, these all look pretty wearable, actually. You
going to say that.
have some, you know, star wearing them on the red carpet or whatever.
It's a pity that we can't hear and see a live stream, because one other thing that we must say is that she has used musicians called
Look at that.
Between Music that are performing underwater. So the music is provided by this group. There they are.
Oh, wow.
They were there, and they're actually in water. Also, we can see it. Thank you.
How do they breathe? Do they?
So they come up every whatever they can minute to take air. And the leader of these musicians, who's a woman who also sings underwater, she has developed a technique where she breathes in a bubble of air and she produces a sound with her voice throughout the bubble. I mean, I'm quoting from what I read. But she also said that what makes her challenge the status quo is that the terror that she feels every time. So it's very interesting. Yeah, she said, because I am afraid of what I'm doing, but that pushes me. And it's a little bit what Iris does, actually.
Yes, that sounds like a real
So this is about the musicians, but it's amazing that they were producing the music live for the show.
And it's so fantastic. It's water again, which is her absolute obsession, and she's got musicians performing underwater. So,
It's like a hand-cranked sort of saxophone, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently it took 10 years to develop these instruments, to make them function underwater. But water, exactly. I mean, this collection is inspired by water, and one of the techniques that she's using is called biomimetic, and it's silver lace, laser cut into thousands of thin stretched lines, hand stitched into 30 waves. So again, you know, she says, I'm inspired by water, I'm using the material, I'm pushing the material to produce the vision of water in a garment. So,
and when she talks about this airborne materiality, this must be related to her love of free-fall parachuting.
that's interesting.
Because she likes, you know, she does free fall, and she likes the feeling of how her body feels, you know, before and during, and tries to express that, which is extraordinary. I'd be terrible, wouldn't you? To jump out of a plane?
I think that's also...
No, I wouldn't do it.
Unless you were wearing an Iris van Herpen parachute.
No.
What we were saying.
I
Is
think
that the one with all the lines and waves, do you think?
This one.
Well, I don't know which one is which one. Maybe you guys are better than me to find out, but that looks like waves. It could be the one we were describing, right? It's fantastic, and it's absolutely wearable.
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on what Hilary said, that whole thing about Iris skydiving. Iris loves skydiving, but equally, I think that shows how she loves the macro, looking at the big picture, and then looking at the micro, the absolute tiny, tiny infinitesimal detail, like those, that
What she's
pleating.
doing here, probably, yeah.
It basically makes Isimaki's pleating look of another century when you look at that. I mean, it's just incredible, absolutely incredible. So I think that's why she's so brilliant, because she can do macro and micro, she can do big concepts, and then fine, incredible detail, which pushes boundaries.
Look at that. These photos, by the way, are by an Irish photographer called Morgan O'Donovan that were kindly provided to us. So we can see the way they were making this. Can we just go back for a second and have a look at the collection, and then go into detail whenever we,
Oh,
look at look number 6.
Beautiful.
But even, I mean, you know, the color, I wish we could see the movement of that, but it's like magic.
And it's almost like you're articulating something that's not usually visual. You know, it's like air or magnetic force or sound waves or those things that we don't ordinarily see. You know, it's just finding this way to visually articulate them is really lovely.
Yeah, she's talked about her obsession of the energy of the human body, and it is almost like kind of the energy radiating.
Yeah, so it's all about air and water. I mean, air and water are the components, the visual components of the whole collection. That's what she wanted to show.
All the components of life.
Absolutely. You can't live without them. So it seems to me that she represents them, these two elements, with the shapes, so with the garments and with the material. So is that something she does all the time? I mean, where she...
19.
I feel the shapes are more important here than ever.
It feels a little bit like the garments almost meld into the body, and then they're either quite solid or they're almost disappearing through the edges.
These are spectacular gowns.
Beautiful.
And look 13 is incredible, because it has that kind of really, you can see historical Japanese reference there, and then it just melts away at the same time.
I see an evolution in the shapes. What do you think, Hilary?
Definitely. I was thinking, I don't know, Star Wars, I suppose, comes to mind, but also Game of Thrones. There's a sort of regal, very noble feeling about it. It's a commanding, powerful look.
Well, she doesn't live in a vacuum, so she's also probably influenced by what goes on, you know, in society, and that's why she's so relevant. Wouldn't it be nice to see some details of look 15? Isn't that spectacular?
Yeah.
I don't know. Biomorphic structures include a feathery light metal lace of geodesic floral pattern. Is that the one?
Was that the geodesic lace?
Yeah, with Philip Beasley, who she's been collaborating many other times, but I'm not sure because the notes do not refer to a specific look.
There was also a velvet lace, wasn't there?
Yes.
And a translucent organza.
Yeah, well, we have to find them. That white back is very beautiful there. Look at this, look, 23. There it is, 24. I think that's the one, right?
Do you know anybody today who makes you really feel what it is to be a woman and be powerful? That's what I always think when I look at her work. Powerful, fragile, all those kind of different contradictions.
That make a woman.
Which make a woman. And you just look at her work and you just feel so,
Look at that.
you understand.
That's a nice, I think these are the floral ones, 26, the one.
Yeah.
That one there.
We like metal lace, yeah.
Can we zoom in anymore?
Can you explain to us what geodesic means, please, Ariane? You did before.
I did before, yeah. It's just the formations underneath rock and crystal, so those kind of formations.
So that's what she imitates in this pattern.
Yes,
right?
yes, and like she's
Look at
very interested in everything underneath the surface and then bringing it up to the surface. So like, you know, collection voltage, which she did with Philip Beasley, which was all about the energy of the body and bringing that out, or the skeleton dress, which she always said is her favourite dress, which is owned by
She
the
said
men.
that. I was very interested in that. She says the skeleton dress is my all-time favorite, and it's very beautiful, but I was a bit surprised because that's all about anatomy and the human body. It's less about the elements. So.
But it plays with the elements through the material she uses. So again, she's breaking down the notion of elements, materiality, and getting them to interact. So that's what's so special about her.
Contours.
Okay, is there fabric underneath, right? Just normal fabric?
Is anything normal?
Exactly. That's why I'm wondering.
I don't think so.
It's very, very beautiful.
That's just breathtaking, actually.
And also, I'm looking at the hair of the models. There is something fairy and angelical about that. You know, everything is very.
Yeah.
And yeah, Hilary, you're right. There is a little bit of regality. Is that a word? In the looks.
So a bit Ophelia or Venus or something. All those imageries or trees.
Sorry, beautiful.
It's also, I think, Ophelia.
Ophelia.
Yes.
Or Venus or.
Well, Ophelia in the water.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else did she say about these?
It's a shame that Bjork is about the only sort of pop star who has the courage, shall we say, or the conviction to wear.
Hasn't Lady Gaga and Beyonce?
Beyonce has, definitely.
As well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But I mean, if you see the red carpets in Hollywood, I mean, are you surprised?
No.
They're still wearing, you know, fishnet tails. I'm not mentioning names, but nobody is really innovative on the red
Split
carpet.
up to here and cleavage there.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah, and then, I wish I could be the image of that on the red carpet.
But some of our British actresses, you know, I mean, Keira Knightley would look fabulous in one of these.
Yeah, you need to be strong and brave and, right?
And she's designed for film, though, so Scarlett Johansson, Lucy was in one of
that was her
Yes.
design.
Yeah, that was. Yep. Did you not recognise it? Yeah, there it was.
Absolutely.
That was Iris. Yeah. So there is that interaction also with film, which is happening much more, and like the films you've made here at SHOWstudio, and the one with Nowness, with the particle dress as well, which she did, this incredible ballet, which she did with Russell Malafant. And a figure suspended in light and water in this incredible particle dress, just again hand sewn, amazing kind of bubbles, which is kind of about the formation of the universe and how we came into being again.
Amazing. So that's what couture is all about.
Yes. Yeah, and going across all those boundaries.
Potentially that's relevant to accessibility as well. You know, if these dresses are encountered through film, musicians, through social media and any other tech platform that you can, you know, that's encountering the work, is still inspiring people and encouraging that kind of imagination. There's a value there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of museums are interested to show the work, so it makes it also on another level.
And she's actually won many awards that usually we think they're more commercial driven, but actually they recognize the value of what she's doing for the industry. But I'm very interested in what you said about the fact that you think that's what's going to happen normally. So you think that all future fashion designer will work with interdisciplinary.
But I really think that's a future, because I think a lot of new knowledge is there, biotechnology. There are a lot of new ways to craft or to build or to grow material, and I think we feel this as very relevant. So it's definitely an area. And also, I think there are a lot of young designers, but also more scientists aware of this cross-disciplinary approach.
Biofabricated material is a thing.
And what it can benefit, and I think it's really exciting. So I definitely think this will have we feel that this will have definitely in 10 years, I think this will be a practice at a certain level. I really think so.
If we will have a very strong kind of bearing, say in 50 years' time, if the world hasn't blown itself up by then, the air may be so polluted that we will have to
go back to the metal,
you know, a kind of whole bodysuit, if you like, through which feeds us pure oxygen, but still looks. Well, the most fashionable people still want to look beautiful, even if they have to be encased in a sort of clear, translucent, synthetic tulle.
I don't want to be in that future, though.
But I think
even if it looks good.
innovation is more about avoiding that future, right? So things like Modern Meadow, where they're growing leather, right? That you
When
could,
they grow,
you
and
know,
I work with Modern Meadow, and I can tell you, it's quite amazing when you think that. I think the kids that are born today, one day will look at us and say, really? You were killing animals to wear shoes? And they are not even harvesting DNA from animals, they are producing cells. So they're taking little microbes that produce cells, that produce collagen. And then the leather was born liquid. That gives thousands of possibilities. So well said to bring it up, because it is true that the scientists are giving people like Harris more possibility to actually experiment.
Yeah, and it's probably reciprocal, you know, she's pushing them, they're pushing her, you know, it's a nice relationship.
But by talking to some young scientists that are doing these kind of things, it's as if they were born with this. I mean, they're so young, they don't even think about, oh, we have to do this because the world is polluted. We just have to do this because this is what has to be done today. You know, we don't believe in killing animals or polluting the planet by taking the hair off or, you know, using chemicals to clean skins. It's just like, let's do it. Let's do it in love. And it's fascinating.
And Iris said how fascinated she is on biosynthetic materials and how she really wants to work with those because she's conscious of the footprint being left, and how amazing it would be to have clothes which drop off you and then grow in the soil and grow back.
That would be amazing.
And so she's really fascinated by all that.
Talk about recycling.
And, you know, talking about her 10-year anniversary, it just feels like the first little tiny step of where this could go. You know, I think it's...
Yeah, I mean, she started 10 years ago where we didn't speak about the modern meadows of the world. And so she's really a visionary. 10 years, it's in how fast the things change today. 10 years is a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think a lot more people work in this area, but I think it's still amazing that she is the only one who really has a place within the couture and the fashion industry, and everyone is looking at it as a sort of very inspirational future. And I think that really is a big quality of her work. Because I think there are a lot of people...
Innovation not for its sake, but for something that actually matters, right?
Yeah, and which matters out across the boundaries. It matters whether it's in an art gallery, museum, whether it's on film,
and on
everything.
people.
Yeah, or on people. It's always pushing. And so it's wonderful that she's also engaging with dance now so directly, with Sasha Waltz, for example, the great, young, very, again, another pushing boundary choreographer. She's had that great collaboration with Benjamin Millepied and other kind of collection.
What did she do? She designed
ballet
costumes for Benjamin's?
Yes, for ballet.
For the Paris Opera?
Yeah. So, and again, going back to her dance roots and her love of movement, which again you see all the time in her collection.
It's so present here.
The material's always moving.
I'm obsessed with look 15. Obsessed.
So you can wear
I
it.
need that. I need that. Oh, God. Deborah, are you inspired by this as a designer? I mean, do you go home and think,
No, I do think it's really inspirational. And I think touching on the aspect of sustainability, because that's something I'm very interested in my work, I think there's been a shift as well where people have realised that actually it's not going to be just about, trying to grow organic cotton or using natural dyes or this, that or the other, because there simply won't be enough space to grow all the crops.
Yeah.
So, we've got to look to science too. So that is the other side of the sustainability coin, if you like, and the fact that she's working with these materials which could have all sorts of implications for the future is really exciting.
And are you planning to do that too?
Well, I don't know. At the moment, I've worked more on the kind of more traditional fabrics, although I have in the past worked with very unusual materials. So I don't really know at the moment. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm sure it would be different to what Iris
Fascinating.
does, but I think it's a really interesting and relevant path.
Let's move it.
Look at the
Beautiful, isn't it?
So yeah, one thing is sure, we need to see her fashion in movement. And the lightness.
Beautiful. You don't get that from the still, do you?
No.
No. And imagine, I mean, can we have the sound? Is it possible? With the underwater music that she also said something very beautiful about the musicians. She said their liquid voices and the subsonic darkness from between music overwhelmed me. It motivated me to dive into the contrast between water and air, between inside and outside, between darkness and lightness. And I love this, always playing with contrast. It's like this medium virtus that you find the best, the perfection in between.
Here it's kind of like between filigree and Maya, right? There's almost like this full, I don't know,
It's almost like whale noises, isn't it?
It is like, it's underwater sounds, the whales.
And then the clothes
She comes up to breathe,
sort of move
that
like
bubble of
waves.
air. So the group is called Aquasonic, and they are from Denmark. It is magical. It's like otherworldly.
It is otherworldly. That's just what I was thinking.
It's a great art installation, isn't it? And a lot of her work, a lot of her shows are like incredible art installations, which, again, like Alexander McQueen and Pepper's Ghost, really, again, push boundaries and break the definitions.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, but actually she's also one of the ones that have used the stage for art, It's not just people walking up and down. There's always something.
Like the collection
Look at that.
Quadriversal with Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones.
From Game of Thrones, coming out of what was that? She was lying on something, right?
Yeah, and the robots were
Yeah.
splaying a dress, literally spraying, looking as though they're spraying a dress on her.
Which reminds of something that Lee McQueen did
Yes.
with Shalom
Hallam
Hallow.
Hollow, yeah. The paint robots.
Paint robots, yeah. I mean, they're rare people, but luckily, as we said before, here now and then they come along and push boundaries. So well done, Iris,
Yeah.
once again.
Well done, Iris.
Beautiful, very magical.
Shall we give her a round of applause?
Yeah.